Howdy, how's it going? Welcome back, or howdy if you're new. Well, today is the day that a lot of you have been begging me for and waiting on. I know I said I would never do the laptop battery mod, but here we are. The first mod that you guys had suggested that I saw a lot of people doing were kind of sketchy. It was the battery mod where you had to cut it in the middle, you had to fold it in half, and then you had to 3D print an entire backplate or plate over it. And the reason I didn't like it is because the other one would relocate the intake vents to up top.
Brother, what's that?
So what would happen is your exhaust would come out and then circle right back in and just keep introducing heat back into it. So you'd have higher temperatures, restricted airflow, and it just wasn't a good design overall in my opinion because it's more sketchy because you have to fold a freaking battery. No one wants to cut that thing open. Alright, well, this mod is for you if you thought that was also sketchy. Even Gamers Nexus thought it was sketchy. Go watch that video if you haven't seen it. I'll link it below. But this mod was found over on the iFixit page. So kudos to them for publishing that article. It was pretty helpful, but I did run into some caveats. As you guys know, there's always a caveat. So the backplate that you have to print for this is difficult to print, to say the least. I'm unable to print it, so I was able to make a bracket. Now I'm not going to be sharing the file for this for a few reasons, but fight me in the comments for it, maybe. So this is the first bracket that I made. As you can see, it's really flimsy. The second one I made is a lot thicker. I had to manipulate the original file to make this work. And basically, instead of gluing it on, I opted to drill and kind of like riv nut in there. So that was a little difficult process in and of itself. It takes a lot of care and time. If you're familiar with those little riv nuts, they're like these little brass nut inserts. Nut.
Yeah, boy.
There we go. This is one of those little riv nuts. You'll need to take your soldering iron and heat it up. You'll basically press a few of those in each corner, and you'll need to drill your back plate in order to fix it there. You can glue it, you can do it a lot of other ways, but that's just the way that I did. The next step is the cable. Oh, and by the way, if you're here to know how well it worked, hang tight after you see this, and then you'll know if it's completely worth it. I also ran it against my UGREEN battery bank here, and we'll dive into what is the best scenario overall for most people who want the most battery life possible, no exceptions. So it says to heat this connector up, and what you're gonna do is depin all of these right here, and you're gonna actually take the battery pins themselves and depin them off that connector. You're gonna pin them in a very specific order, which I'm gonna link the guide to below. But you notice this is a stock ROG Ally battery cable, and you notice there is no third cable. That's very important because one of these red cables is right there. So there's red, 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 and then it goes blue and then green, I believe, and then black and black. So you'll follow the guide on the wiring. I'm not going to show that here, but if you want to follow the guide to the wiring, do it at your own risk. I ran through a couple of these connectors and I ruined them because in order to heat the glue up, you have to get it so hot you'll almost, if not, burn those connectors completely or warp them, and then they won't fit in the Ally again at all. You have to get the glue out. The glue is what's holding this whole thing together. You can try depinning it without it, but it's impossible. So the other option is what I opted for. It was kind of a no-brainer for me. I just heated the glue up enough to open one of those holes up, and I had one of these that I just depinned the one single pin. I added that third red pin right there, and I just snipped it on both ends, and I soldered them all together. I used some really janky masking tape. It's kind of all I had. I couldn't find my heat shrink tubing. The problem is if you use heat shrink tubing, it might actually make it too thick to flex. So that was another kind of like caveat, if you will. You need to make sure it will flex enough because you can see the angle and the bend that it's actually going to need to make, because it's going to go underneath. If you're running a 2280 NVMe drive, it gets even trickier. So you're going to need to actually make that really sharp bend to go underneath that 2280 drive. If you're running a 2230 drive, it makes the whole process a lot easier and you won't need to worry too much, but it will still need to bend and flex regardless. So there's probably some easier ways to do it. Running these cables a little shorter may have helped, but then you run the risk of when you actually put the whole thing back together, you not being able to connect the battery up and then close it. If you make the hole bigger, then you could actually close it up and mount the battery and then plug it in, but then you would have to find a way to mount this on the outside rather than screwing it in on the inside. This is structurally pretty good. The other caveat is the weight balance. It's thrown off a little bit, but not much. The cool thing is it operates as a stand, and with it planted down, it doesn't flop over like you would think. Battery price wise, this one was about 25 bucks, and you can get them all the way up to like 40 bucks on Amazon. I'll try to link a couple of SKUs below. Some say they're rated higher than others, but in my experience, most of these batteries all really perform about the same. It just is branding and the labeling and all that good stuff. So definitely keep that in mind when you're looking for a battery. Just go through a reputable seller, make sure they have a good return policy, and you should be good to go. Now, when it comes to the connectors, I found these on eBay for about 10 bucks each. I picked up about 3 of them, I think, maybe 4. And I got 1 left for emergencies. I probably will not be revising this because in a second you'll see why I don't think it's worth it, and there's other options. Removing your stock battery does counterbalance some of that weight, and it does actually help out. It's still lighter overall than the Lenovo Legion Go. I think this mod could be useful for a couple of reasons. One, let's say you want to add this battery and you want to use the UGREEN battery bank, or maybe you just don't have the money for the UGREEN battery bank and this is the only mod you can do. Well, then that makes sense because it does double your battery life at the bare minimum. Then it makes sense. So under 40 bucks, it makes sense, but a lot of people don't want to do that. So I'm going to show you my favorite method. This is one of the Handheld DIY backplates. Shout out Handheld DIY. You know, I love you guys. You make great products. I show these off all the time. We've done tons of videos on them. So if you'll take this bottom one, you'll slide this in as well. So this is why I don't really like the laptop battery mod, because this has always been a thing. You can take this UGREEN, you can get other brands, but this one is my favorite just because it's compact and it fits this absolutely like a glove. So you can come here like so, just kind of stretch that out. And now you got your battery bank. So when your ROG Ally is sitting up on your desk, you can set it up like that. You can still hold it. And this is actually about the same weight as that. So it's not, you know, much different, but it still doesn't block your vents. It blocks a little bit of the bottom, but it still has enough gap back here to breathe. So it's a good option. It's portable. It's quickly removable, and you'll never even know it was there. And it's something you can throw in your bag. And like I said, in just a second, you're gonna see why I recommend this over any other option. If you have a stock backplate or a JSOX backplate, there are options to be able to mount these on the back. So I think that's about all the questions that I personally had as far as how it's going to mount, how do you do the cable. Now I'm going to actually just quickly show you how to install it. Once you've made that, we're just going to turn this Ally off. So here is the current situation for my Ally. I am running the 2280 heatsink by EK Waterblock. If you don't want to buy from them, that's fine. There's other brands that make 2280 heatsinks and they're all great. Just make sure you're getting something thick enough to make sure it actually does make a difference. So now that this has been made, I'll show you how to install it. You'll slide this little battery connector up. You'll kind of pop that out of place, wiggle this, and you'll wiggle that, and you we'll take the old battery out. We'll set this aside here. We'll go ahead and we'll leave that out because getting this in is tricky, and I'm going to show you why. So how I did it is I went in here like so, It's going to be very hard to do this on camera, but it definitely takes some finagling. It's very nerve-wracking. So you'll fit that in there like that, and then you kind of have to use one part of your thumb to slide that little switch down in place, and it doesn't always go on just right. Like, it didn't go on that time at all. So I have to kind of wiggle that connector into place. There we go. Now it's popped in. You can see that little metal clip is slid in. Now you'll take your 2280, you'll slide it in, and this is where the longer battery cable came in handy. So once that's on, it's really just a matter of wiggling all this into place and making sure your NVMe drive doesn't move. There is a way that you can put this back in to hold your NVMe drive down, but you know what I mean? It's definitely kind of a pain. So once it's done like that, this is how it's going to look. If you're wondering about the purple buttons, I 3D printed these myself. I will do some more videos on all the mods I've done to this thing. And if you haven't seen any of the other mods, go check them out. I've done a ton of videos on the Legion Go, a ton of videos on the Ally. If you need ideas or you want to figure out how to do these things, definitely watch my videos. And if you want to join the Discord, it's free. We got tons of modders in there. There is a huge community behind me, and I really support you. You support me. It's just a nice little happy family of modders in there. So thank you guys. And while this is turning on, thank you to all the members. If you want to become a channel member, support the channel. Links in the description below. And thank you so much to the members who are a part of this channel. You guys are OGs. You get exclusive content, exclusive firsthand looks. I try to show all of you guys what I'm working on. And we're going to be having some contests and some members only stuff that only the members get to know about. So if you want to become a member and support, help grow it and help buy more mods and do things like this is what we do. So basically what I did to run these tests is I opened up Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I loaded up into the exact same level. I jumped onto the same exact part of the course, and I basically just had it spinning around in a circle doing a grind. And I would let it sit there the entire time because I knew it's going to be rendering the exact same set of frames and running the exact same FPS. I had the wattage locked to 25 watts. I had everything set to be the exact same. That way there's really no variables. We were able to get 45 minutes on the stock battery. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but this is a demanding title. It had the GPU and the CPU boost all the way up. So I was getting 2.2 gigahertz on the GPU, and I was getting like 3 gigahertz or so on the CPU or more, but it was pretty hefty of a load. That game always drains this battery for me really quickly. So if you are playing something a little less demanding, your mileage will vary for sure. So with the stock battery, we're getting about 45 minutes. With the laptop battery, we got 1.7 hours. Yeah, 1.7 hours. That's more than double the stock battery life. It's absolutely impressive. But with the stock battery and the UGREEN battery bank, got over 3 hours. 3 hours with this. And really, it's not that much more money to just buy the UGREEN. It's less FAFO, it's less headache, and it's more reward with less risk. I do use these UGREEN products every day. And how I charge my devices and stuff, I use this right here. You can use a 100 watt if you will. Don't get a 65 watt because when you're using a dock, you're not going to get the full 30 watt and up potential, boosting up to 53 watts. This will give you everything and more. This is completely overkill, but this UGREEN Nexode X, this is the newest and latest and greatest. It has the GaN Infinity technology, which basically just means higher efficiency, smaller packaging. You have the thermal guard technology, which also prevents your batteries from exploding and overheating, and it really does help protect your device. I can't speak highly enough of UGREEN. They did send this stuff over, but all the chargers and docks they have sent over for review, I get to keep them. I'm not paid to say these things, but it is something that I just have to mention in case anybody's wondering. I can stamp my CPPC Tech approval on it. So if you see stuff on the channel over and over again, it's because it gets my approval. With all that said, if you have a battery bank, cool. If you don't have one, you don't have to buy the UGREEN. If you want to get the UGREEN, hey, links below. definitely don't mind you buying it, but there are other options out there. Find the one that fits you best. Make sure it's a good reputable brand. Make sure it can deliver the power that you need, and have at it. There are other battery options out there. I'm just saying they're not the only one, but they are the best one. If you want to do the laptop battery mod, here's the way to go. I do recommend printing this out of PETG or ABS. This is done with PLA+. It is not going to withstand the temperature cycles already. I can tell you that. It's already starting to warp in the middle. If you are looking to do the battery mod, beware that, it's a little kind of risky, but it's not near as risky as the other one. I can assure you that it's not that bad. It's more or less of just getting the cable completed. Buy a couple cables, buy a battery or two, experiment, buy an older damaged battery. Just try to experiment on the cabling. Make sure your cables don't touch. You will need a heat gun, potentially a soldering iron. You'll need some solder, some flux, some heat shrink tubing, or some tape. You'll need a good bit of modding accessories. So if you're used to modding, it's kind of nothing new for you. You already know what to do. But I appreciate you who made it to the end. And if you made it to the end, you are an OG. And tell me in the comments what your favorite part of this video was, which mod you're going to go with. If you have questions, drop it. Do what you want to do. And yeah, we got a lot more stuff coming. I've got a gaming tablet to review next. I've got a gaming monitor to review next. We've got some office upgrades that were sent over. So we have a really cool ergonomic gaming / office chair that we're going to be looking at, see if it's worth it. We're going to look at a lot of stuff. People really value my opinions, and it is so awesome and it's so humbling, and I'm so appreciative that I'm able to bring things to you honestly, tell it to you exactly how it is from my point of view, my perspective, as just an average everyday person who likes to FAFO with everything. So if you like to FAFO too, buckle up, get ready. We are just getting started. So I hope all of you guys have a good afternoon, good evening,